Christmas Day? No. It was the night before Christmas Day. The streets were gradually becoming quiet as everyone tried to get home for Christmas Eve. That day was so rainy and cold. I had worked the entire day talking to many people and clients about trivial cases and matters. By the end, I was utterly exhausted from all the talking. On that day, I felt so tired and wanted to go home so badly. It had been rainy and cold all day. Actually, I like rainy days. When you walk outside and the cold air makes steam come from your mouth. It feels magical, but only if you have enough warm clothes to keep your body comfortable. Yes, rain is beautiful, but I didn't want to get sick because of the cold. Anyway, on that cold and rainy day, I was completely drained, and it was late. I didn't have any more appointments, so I decided to go home. I packed all my things, turned off the fireplace, and walked to the door. Just then, someone knocked on the door. I stopped and thought for a second. Did I have any appointments today? Did I forget something? Or was it just the mailman? But the mailman usually comes in the morning. I opened the door. Usually no one knocks on the door without an appointment. Everyone comes to my office by arrangement. But standing there was an old lady, soaked from the rain and visibly cold. She looked exhausted, breathing heavily, probably from climbing all the stairs to my office. "How may I help you?" I asked. She tried to smile politely and said, "Can I meet Sarah Jackson, please?" I replied, "That's me. What can I do for you?" She smiled faintly and looked at me as though hoping I'd invite her inside. But I was so tired, I just wanted to go home. Seeing my hesitation, she quickly added, "I know I should have made an appointment, but I live far away and couldn't arrange one. I walked all this way. Please, just give me a chance. Just 10 minutes. I felt terrible about my initial reaction. I quickly smiled, invited her inside, turned on the fireplace and made her a coffee. I tried to be nice to her. She was already so tired. "That's fine," I said. "I'm here to listen, please. Tell me your story." She began, "I'm an old mother with 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. One of my daughters is married and has her own life. My younger daughter, Olivia, is 18 and still lives at home. But my story is about my son, Tomas." Her voice wavered as she described Tomas, a 25-year-old hardworking man. He worked at the local beer factory, one of the largest in town. "I know the owner, people call him Snakehead," she said, frowning. "I never liked him. Something always felt wrong about that factory, though I've never been there or met him." About Tomas, she explained that he was the breadwinner of the family. He paid the rent, covered household expenses, and took care of them. She was too old to work, and Olivia couldn't find a safe job. She continued, saying that her daughter is so beautiful and she is very worried about her working. Olivia has no experience, and this town is not safe for her. Anyway, Tomas decided to work hard to take care of everything. He was doing great, but he didn't return home from work 5 days ago. He usually worked every day from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and walked home, which took him about 45 minutes. Sometimes he would stop by a bar midway to have a beer to warm himself before continuing his walk. He never spent more than 15 minutes at the bar, so even if he stopped, he would typically be home by 7 p.m. at the latest. However, he didn't come home 5 days ago, and his poor mother has been trying to find him ever since. She had no luck. After the first day, she went to the police, and while they initially tried to find him, no one knew what had happened. It seemed as though the police didn't care much. She searched everywhere and contacted all his friends, but it was as if he had vanished. After 5 days, the police told her the case was closed because they couldn't find any leads. Feeling hopeless, she came to me for help. I asked her if it was possible Tomas was with a girlfriend, but she shook her head and explained that he used to have a girlfriend. However, she had left him because Tomas was so focused on taking care of his mother. Looking at her tired, desperate face, I felt compelled to give her some hope. I promised her that I would start searching for Tomas first thing the next day. The mother smiled at me, and with trembling hands she handed me a small token. It was her necklace. Something her late husband had given her when they got married a long time ago. She had kept it all these years for her daughter. But now she said, "I don't need it anymore. This is your payment." I smiled back at her, returned the necklace and said, "I'll charge you when I get the job done." The old lady left, and shortly after I walked out too. headed into the rainy city, where Christmas decorations lit up every corner. Despite the rain, cheerful people were walking home to celebrate the holiday. Gradually, the rain turned into snow, blanketing the streets in white. As I walked home, I passed by the large beer warehouse and factory where Thomas worked. Usually, I would take a carriage to my home, but no one was operating that night, so I had to walk. The scene around me felt surreal, with the falling snow contrasting against the city's vibrant holiday lights. Yes, this is the same factory the old lady mentioned. The door was open, and it seemed people were still working. I was exhausted and just wanted to go home. But the old lady's smile and the look in her eyes stayed with me, urging me to find her son. So I walked inside the factory. It was Christmas, and usually everyone takes the night off, but this factory was still operating. Probably because people needed beer and Snakehead wouldn't let his employees spend time with their families. I thought about all this as I walked through the factory. Workers were busy making bottles of beer. The place was enormous, filled with many employees, none of whom looked happy to be working on Christmas time, which was understandable. I approached the first man I saw and asked about Thomas. He didn't know him, but suggested I speak to a young woman named Margaret. He said she knew everyone. I walked further and eventually spotted a young woman working there. I approached her, and yes, she was Margaret. She looked exhausted, but managed to give me a tired smile. I introduced myself and told her I was looking for someone who might know about Thomas. As soon as I mentioned his name, her demeanour changed. She seemed startled, almost frightened. She immediately resumed working as if she hadn't seen or heard me. I asked again, but this time she looked serious and said, "I'm busy. I don't know anyone." It was clear she knew something but was too scared to talk. I told myself I needed to find someone else who might know about Thomas. As I walked further into the factory, someone brushed past me quickly and handed me a piece of paper. I didn't see her face, but it was clear she wanted to tell me something. I unfolded the paper, which read, "Find Martin. Martin knows more than anyone here." Following the note, I asked around for Martin, and people directed me to an older man working hard at the factory. He was the longest-serving employee there and knew Snakehead very well. I approached him, introduced myself, and mentioned Tomas's mother was looking for him. At first he didn't want to talk, but when I mentioned Tomas's mother, he began to open up. He told me Tomas worked with him and that he knew him well. "Tomas is one of the best friends I've ever had," he said, but then his tone grew somber. 5 days ago, he just didn't come back. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Come back from where?" Martin looked at me and replied, "From Snakehead's office." Just then, a loud, unsettling noise came from behind us. We turned to see Snakehead, a man with a human body and a snake's head. He was terrifying, flanked by 2 large bodyguards. For a moment, he simply stared at us with a serious expression. Then, suddenly, he smiled. A grotesque, unsettling smile. He looked directly at me and said, "You must be Sarah Jackson, the best private investigator in town. Why didn't you come to my office? I'd love to invite you for a cup of coffee and help you with whatever you need." Surprisingly, he was polite and well-spoken, far more courteous than anyone else I'd encountered. His manner was unnerving though, because it felt disingenuous. I agreed to walk with him to his office, but I noticed Martin trembling as he followed behind us, clearly terrified. He took me to his office, a very nice and clean space. He offered me one of the finest beers from his factory, and I accepted. It was incredible. I'd never tasted anything like it before. He also offered me a cigarette, not the cheap street kind, but a high-quality one, and I took it. So we started smoking together. After a moment, he asked why I was there and why I was looking for Tomas. I told him the whole story, everything Tomas's mother had shared with me. After hearing my story, he exhaled a long puff of smoke and said, "I know about it. His mother came to me and talked to me. I told her I had no idea where he is. I replied, but Martin said you were the last person to see him. He came to your office and hasn't been seen since." He grew serious and said, "No, Sarah Jackson, you've got the wrong information. Maybe he's with his girlfriend now." I corrected him, saying, "He doesn't have a girlfriend. His last girlfriend left him a long time ago." He paused, staring at me. "It seems like you know a lot about Tomas and his story. Who told you all this?" "His mother," I replied. He stood up, walked to the window and looked outside. "Oh my God," he muttered. "This old lady doesn't know what she's doing." I explained. The police didn't help her, so she hired me to find him. Snakehead walked back to his desk, picked up an expensive diamond and handed it to me. "You're doing great," he said. "Now you're working for me. Please share any information you find with me. I'll be happy to help locate Tomas. But keep in mind this old lady, Tomas's mother, has mental problems. She doesn't understand things very well and often makes up stories. Just help me find him and thank you for your service." I was shocked. Really? He wants to hire me to find Tomas? The diamond was enormous, worth more money than I'd ever seen in my life. With that kind of money, I could pay off all my debts and travel for New Year's. I'd always dreamed of going somewhere, but I worked every day and never had the chance. Lost in my daydreams, I barely noticed when Snakehead interrupted me. "Any questions?" he asked. I smiled and replied, "No, thank you for your help. We'll find him, and of course I'll keep you updated on the progress." I left his office and walked back through the factory. The beer he'd given me made me feel strange, sleepy, almost like I was drunk. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I passed Martin on my way out. He looked at me, but I didn't stop. I just kept walking. The snow outside was thick, and I trudged through it all the way home. I reached my front door and was about to go inside when someone struck me hard on the head. I couldn't remember anything after that. When I woke up in the morning, my neighbour and a police officer were standing over me. A doctor checked me and helped me get to bed. The police asked, "Do you remember what happened last night?" I replied, "No, but it feels like someone hit me." The officer pressed further. "Do you have any enemies? Anyone who might dislike you?" "No, I don't think so," I answered. Then I asked, "Where's my purse?" I had a black purse with me. The police searched everywhere, but it was gone. No purse, no sign of who had taken it. The police looked at me and said, "It seems like it was just a robbery last night. You're very lucky to be alive. Did you have anything important in your purse?" I suddenly remembered the diamond, the most beautiful and expensive diamond I had ever seen. I told them, yes, I had a diamond. The police stared at me and everyone around started laughing. "A diamond? What are you talking about?" one of them asked. "Yes," I insisted. "I had a very special diamond in my purse. It was a blue diamond." Their laughter grew louder. The police turned to the doctor and asked, "Did you check her head? It seems like something isn't right." The doctor replied, "Yes, unfortunately someone hit her head very hard, but with rest, she'll recover." Nobody believed me. The police quickly closed the case, reporting it as a robbery by a hungry homeless person who hit me, took my purse and disappeared. That was the end of it. They left and I sat there in shock, trying to piece together what had happened. I remembered the diamond Snakehead had given me, but I knew no one would believe me. I considered asking Snakehead to confirm it, but I was sure he would be furious if he found out I'd lost it. Exhausted, I tried to sleep. I woke up 2 or maybe 2.5 hours later and attempted to walk around. Physically, I felt okay. Maybe the police were right. Maybe it was just a hungry homeless person who hit me and stole my purse. But then I remembered his shadow and his hand. He'd been wearing a leather jacket, not something you'd expect from a homeless person. And I clearly recalled a big tattoo on his hand. This wasn't just a random act of desperation. Someone had deliberately targeted me, taken my purse and stolen the diamond. But no one else knew about the diamond. I had put it in my purse the moment Snakehead gave it to me. I felt like I was losing my mind. Still, I couldn't dwell on it forever. I had a job to do. Last night, I had accepted the case from the old lady, and then Snakehead had also hired me to find Thomas. He had already paid me, so I needed to start immediately. But today was a holiday. Nobody worked on holidays. I was so tired, and going back to sleep sounded tempting. Yet, her eyes, the old lady's sad, desperate face haunted me. She didn't have the luxury of taking a holiday. Her pain was raw and constant. So I dressed up and walked out into the city. I didn't know where to begin, but I had to start somewhere. I decided to track down everyone who knew Tomas, his friends, his family, his mother again, maybe his sister, and even his ex-girlfriend. They had broken up 3 months ago, but she might still know something. Maybe she knows something, so it's better to find her. But where is she? How can I find her? I decided to go to Margaret's house. She told me she lived on the west side of town, after an abandoned house. So I walked to the west side and found the abandoned house, and just beyond it I spotted a small old house. Yes, that must be her house. Snow had covered the roof, and it seemed like it had been a heavy snowfall. Usually you have to clear the snow from the roof of an old house. If you don't, it can become dangerous. Anyway, I knocked on the door, and after a moment someone opened it. A beautiful girl looked at me and said, "Yes, how may I help you?" I said, "You must be Olivia." She replied, "Yes." I continued, "Can I talk to Margaret, your mother?" Margaret called from inside. "Come in, Sarah, I'm here." I entered the house and saw Margaret lying on the bed. "What's happened, Margaret? Are you okay?" Margaret said, "Don't come too close to me, I'm sick. After I left your office, I walked all the way home and it was so cold. Now I'm sick, but I'll be fine." I apologised and she said, "No worries, Olivia made soup for me and she'll take care of me." I smiled at her and Olivia smiled back. Margaret asked, "Did you find anything about my son?" I replied, "That's why I'm here. I need to talk to someone." She asked, "Who?" I answered, "His ex-girlfriend." Margaret paused and said, "I don't know. After she left my son, he was so sad and cried. He never told me where she lives. I don't know why she left him for no reason." I felt like all the doors were closing on me and I wasn't sure I would find her. But Olivia spoke up, "I think I know where you can find her." I asked, "Where?" Olivia said, "One night Tomas took me to a bar to meet her. She was working there, but I'm not sure if she still works there." I replied, "That's great information." Olivia gave me the address of the bar and I was ready to go. Margaret then said to Olivia, "Olivia, please clean the house. We'll have a guest soon." Olivia asked, "Who?" Margaret answered, "Snakehead." When I heard that name, I looked at Margaret and she continued, "He never cared about us. He never let me talk to him about my son, and he told everyone I was crazy. But I don't know why, today, he's being so nice to me and wants to meet with me. He wants to bring Madison to me." I said, "Okay, I'd better go then." I walked out before Snakehead could arrive. But I didn't want him to see me there. Olivia followed me to close the door behind me. I looked at her and said, "Can I ask you something?" She replied, "Sure." I asked, "Can you and your mother not say anything about my visit today? About me visiting your mother?" Olivia understood and said, "I will make sure my mother doesn't say anything either." "But why? Don't you like him?" I said, "I don't know." Then she said, "I don't like him either. I don't want him to come to our house." I asked, "Why? Did you ever meet him?" Olivia replied, "Yes, one night, my mother and I were at the factory to visit my brother and he saw me." She stopped. I asked, "So what happened?" She said, "Nothing happened, but the way he looked at me wasn't right." I said, "Yes, I understand. I'm a girl like you. Don't worry, I have to go before he comes, but I'd love to chat with you later." I said that and walked quickly. From the other side of the street, I saw Snakehead with 2 men around him walking in front of his house. The 2 men stopped and he walked inside. One of the men started smoking and I just saw his hand. He had a tattoo on his hand. "Oh my God, this is exactly the same tattoo as the man who hit me last night. I'm sure he's the person, but how can I prove it? The police didn't even believe me when I said I had a diamond." I have to find the answer. There are a lot of stories and confusing things around me, but I have to face them. Where was I? Yes, I have to go to the bar where his girlfriend works. What was her name? Jasmine, yes. Margaret called her Jasmine. So I walked through the snow to the bar. People were happy on the street, kids were making snowmen and playing with them, and everyone was celebrating Christmas. After walking through several streets, I found the bar. It was a very old salon. I'd been here before. It's a man's club where all the men come to get drunk, and it's not really a safe place for women. But this is my job, to find the truth. And don't forget, I've already gotten my payment, the diamond. Anyway, I walked into the salon and looked around. The bar was very busy, with 3 girls dancing with drunk men, but it seemed like I was the only female guest at the bar. I walked up to the bar and a young man came over to me. He asked, "What do you want to drink?" I said, "I'm looking for Jasmine." He replied, "She'll be here in about an hour." I said, "That's fine, I can wait for her." I walked to one of the tables and looked outside. A lot of drunk people were walking in and out in front of the salon. A Santa stood outside the salon with his bell, and kids were looking at him, smiling. At that moment, a fancy carriage pulled by 6 black horses stopped in front of the salon. Yes, it was Snakehead's carriage. Why is he here? What does he want? I don't know. He walked inside, and after a moment he approached me and sat down across from me. I smiled and he said, "So, I've been looking for you. What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm just here to have a drink. It's really cold outside." He asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" I replied, "No, just passing time." He said, "What's up? Did you find anything about Tomas? Any news?" I answered, "No, but I'm working on it. I'll let you know." For a moment, he looked directly into my eyes. It was a scary look, and he said, "I really want to be the first person to hear about your progress." I said, "Okay, no problem." He smiled, that eerie smile, and stood up. He looked at me and asked, "Are you enjoying your diamond?" I glanced at his assistant, thinking maybe he didn't know about it. Maybe his assistant was doing this without his permission. Should I tell him? I was deep in thought when he woke me up by asking the question. Same question, "Are you enjoying your diamond? Did you like it?" I asked. "Yes, it's amazing," I replied. He smiled and walked to his carriage. I could see him still looking at me from inside the carriage, and after a moment, the carriage moved. I'm sure he knows something. Maybe he's involved in this story. I don't know. I was looking outside when I noticed a girl walking out from behind the bar. She took her jacket and walked outside of the salon. Who was she? I knew this place was usually for men, so who was she? I just ran after her. She was walking on the side of the street and I followed her. After a moment, I walked next to her and she looked at me. She was so scared and tried to walk faster. I said, "Hi, my name's Sarah. You must be Jasmine. Can I talk to you?" She looked at me and started walking faster. I just followed her, pleading, "Can you please stop for a second?" She said, "Leave me alone. Are you crazy? What do you want from me?" I said, "I just need to talk to you." She turned into an alley and looked behind her, visibly scared, glancing around the street. I asked her, "Are you looking for something? Is something scaring you?" She replied, "Yes, you're crazy. What the hell are you doing in the salon?" I said, "Jasmine, I just want to talk to you." She responded, "I don't want to talk to you." I asked, "Why? Are you scared of something or do you know something?" She said, "About what?" I replied, "I just want to ask you about Tomas." She looked at me with longing, as if remembering her love deeply, but very quickly her mood changed. She said, "I don't know him. Leave me alone," and tried to walk away, but I stopped her. "No, you know him very well. I need your help. He's been missing for almost 5 days. Please help me find him." When she heard me, she stopped and looked at me. Then she started crying. "What did you just say? What's happened to him?" I said, "You really don't know." Again, she looked around, scared, and said, "Follow me." I slowly followed her to her home. It was a small one, decorated with a small Christmas tree, and next to the tree there was a painting of 2 people, her and a man standing next to her. I stopped in front of the painting and she said, "That's him." I looked at the picture. He had a beautiful smile, standing next to Jasmine, and she started crying. "What's happened to him?" I said, "I don't know, that's why I'm here. But first, tell me what you're hiding." She looked out the window and said, "I saw you with Snakehead. What is your relationship with him?" I replied, "Nothing. He just hired me to find Tomas." She looked at me, shocked. "No, he hates Tomas. He's evil." I asked her, "What do you know? Why did you leave Tomas 2 months ago?" She answered, "I love him. I still do. But Snakehead wants me. He wants to have me. And he said that if I didn't break up with Tomas, he would kill him. So I decided to lie to him. I told him I didn't want him and he was shocked. He just left me. I did it to keep Tomas safe. You don't know Snakehead. He's a monster. Everyone in the town is scared of him." I asked, "Why didn't you talk to the police?" She started laughing and said, "Really? Do you think the police will listen to me? The police work for him. He has power everywhere, and if people don't listen to him, he will kill them easily." I asked, "Do you think he killed Tomas? And if so, why?" She said, "I hope not, but Tomas didn't do anything. I don't know why he hates Tomas." At that moment, she looked out the window and said, "I have to go. We have a big event tonight. He wants me to be at his party. I have to be ready." I shouted, "Why? He took your boyfriend from you and now you're working for him?" She replied, "You don't understand. He's destroyed my life. That salon belongs to him. He owns everything. Everyone in the city works for him. Tonight he has a special event and I have to be there." I asked, "What do you mean by a special event?" She said, "I heard he wants to marry someone. I don't know who, but he wants to introduce his new wife to everyone." I was confused and she was so scared. She asked again, "Please, I don't want any problems. He made me leave Tomas. Now I'm so scared of him. He is a snake, and you know that. He poisons everyone he doesn't like. Please let me get ready and go to his party. And please, you didn't talk to me about anything." I said, "Don't worry," and I slowly walked out of her room. Snow started falling and it was almost afternoon. I felt hungry, so I decided to go to the small restaurant in town and have something to eat. I was sitting at a table inside, looking out at the snow. I was confused walking through the street. What's really happening? Who is right? What happened to Tomas? Is he still alive? But I remembered Snakehead had told me, "Don't worry, he's still alive." When I asked him how he knew, he said, "It's a feeling." Maybe Tomas is at his factory somewhere, but why? Tomas is just a simple man. No wealth, no power. Why would Snakehead do this to him? The waitress brought my food and I started eating, trying to forget everything. It's Christmas, and why should I be stressed about something that's not even my business? Lost in my thoughts, I saw Snakehead's carriage slowly passing the restaurant. A fancy one. I couldn't see inside the carriage, but for a second I saw the passenger seat. Olivia was sitting there, looking outside, the most beautiful girl in town. Next to her was Snakehead with an ally and a scary smile, looking at her. No, it couldn't be true. I didn't see it clearly. Maybe I was just so hungry and I was seeing everything wrong. But no, it was him and Olivia. I hoped I was wrong. I didn't finish my food. I ran after the carriage, but it was already too far and I couldn't catch up. I stopped and looked around. It was almost dark, and I knew there was a big party for Snakehead. But why didn't he invite me? Everyone else was going. Oh my God, he wanted me to be busy looking for Tomas outside his factory and his event while he did something without me seeing it. Oh my God, but wait, maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe I'm just dreaming. I did see him with his carriage, the only fancy carriage in town. Yes, that was him, but I'm not sure about the girl. Was she Olivia or not? I have to find out. I ran fast to Margaret's house to make sure Olivia was there, but no one answered the door. I knocked hard and then went to the window. Margaret was sleeping on the bed and I could see her from the window. So I went around the back and entered through the backyard. Margaret was hot, feverish and sick, but where was Olivia? Yes, the girl in the carriage was Olivia. I brought some water for Margaret and tried to talk to her, but she was too sick. I noticed some medicine on the table. Yes, Snakehead had brought that medicine for her, but why did she feel so bad now? Oh my God, maybe it's poisoned, like Jasmine said. I ran to the doctor across the street. He was at his house, preparing to go to Snakehead's party, but I stopped him and took him to Margaret's house. He confirmed that it was poison, not medicine. Once I was sure the doctor could take care of Margaret, I ran to my office. I grabbed a small gun from my desk. I usually didn't carry it, but tonight I'd have to use it. This was my job. I'm a private detective, and I have to find the truth. I ran to the factory, but before going there, I needed to visit an old friend. Someone I grew up with. Yes, Alex. Alex and I grew up in the same neighborhood, and we both liked solving puzzles. He works in the police department, and he is the only one I can trust because he loves me, and I know that. It's a long story worth talking about, but I have to admit that, in a way, I like him too. He's a good man. Anyway, I ran to him and found out he was invited to the party as well. I told him the story, but he didn't believe on me. He said I was playing with fire and tried to stop me. But when he realized I was serious about finding out everything about Tomas, he told me to please be careful. Anyway, I just wanted him to make a phone call to the state police to let them know what I had found, just as a backup plan. I walked to the party. The snow was getting heavier and almost no one was on the street. I walked to the factory, where a lot of people were celebrating Christmas, but I had to cover my face. I needed to find Tomas. I was sure he was in the factory. I slowly passed through the crowd. Several girls were dancing on stage, with an Eden standing and a woman swinging, as well as a dance floor, and most people were drinking and having fun. I saw everyone there. I slowly passed them and made my way toward the actual factory. The factory had stopped working for 2 hours. Snakehead hadn't even given them one night to be with their families. He only gave them 2 hours for his personal event. He was planning to get married that night, and I wanted everyone to know about it. I was walking around when I passed one of the machines Tomas used to work on. I just hoped to find something. At that moment, I heard a noise and quickly hid behind the machine. A big man with tattoos on his hand was walking around, and his dog was sniffing everywhere. It seemed like the dog had noticed me, and they slowly started searching the area. I have to do something, but what? What can I do? I didn't find Tomas here, and I have to go to Snakehead's office now. The man slowly walked past me, and at that moment someone called him, another bodyguard. He said, "This is the time. Where are you?" "You should be here." He looked around and pointed his flashlight everywhere. After a moment, he walked back with his dog. The dog barked, but the man just kept walking. Snakehead, with several beautiful girls, walked onto the stage. One of the girls was Jasmine. She looked sad, but had to be there. After a moment, another girl walked to the stage, and Snakehead happily grabbed her hand and made her sit next to him. Oh my God, no, it's not going to happen. The girl was Olivia. She's the most beautiful girl in town. Oh no, Snakehead wants to marry her. Snakehead was very older than her, but he wants her, and I could see she was not happy. What's going on here? I decided to do something. I wanted to walk to the stage, but someone grabbed my hand and stopped me. Yes, it was Martin, the old man who worked with Tomas. He looked at me seriously and asked me to follow him. I followed him, and he said, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" I told him, "I have to stop this. I know Olivia doesn't like him. Who could like him?" He said, I know everything." I was confused and asked him, "What do you know? What do you mean?" He said, "We don't have time. I will tell you the whole story. But you just need to know, Tomas is alive. I know that. One of the workers told me he saw him somewhere behind his office." I asked him, "Why? What happened?" He looked at me seriously and said, "Snakehead asked Tomas to marry his sister, and Tomas refused. So Snakehead made him a hostage, forcing him to marry his sister first. After that, he will deal with Tomas. I think I know where he is." I was shocked but followed him as we slowly walked to the stairs leading to Snakehead's office. Martin opened the door and we walked in. Snakehead was very happy on stage, introducing his new wife, Olivia. I was so angry. Martin tried to find a hidden door inside the office. After a moment, he pushed a large bookshelf and found the door, but it was locked. He grabbed something and started hitting the door, and after a few moments, he managed to open it, and yes, poor Tomas was there. They tied his hand, he looked so tired, and it seemed like Snakehead's assistant had beaten him badly. Tomas looked at us with relief, and Martin helped him out. Tomas said, "Snakehead's assistant kept me in this room." I told him, "We don't have time to discuss that. We have to stop Snakehead. He wants to marry Olivia." Tomas got so angry and stood up, but in front of the door stood a big man with a dog and a shotgun, blocking their way. Martin and Tomas looked at the man. Martin looked at Tomas and said, "You go, don't worry about me, I'll fight him. You need to go and stop Snakehead before he marries your sister." The big man walked in, and he started fighting with Tomas and Martin. At one point, Martin managed to grab him, but the man shot Martin and Martin fell to the ground. Tomas looked at him, shocked, as Martin struggled to breathe. Everyone at the event was happy, dancing, and no one noticed the gunshot. The big man walked toward us, and I took my gun from my purse and pointed it at him. He was shocked. I said, "I will shoot your face if I have to," and he stopped. Martin looked at Tomas and said, "Go, Tomas, go." Snakehead walked to the stage and tried to put the ring on Olivia's finger. At that moment, Tomas started healing and stopped everyone. He said, "Stop it." Snakehead, shocked, looked at Tomas angrily. I walked out of the office with the big man, and everyone looked at us. I looked at the doctor and said, "Doctor, we need your help." This man shot Martin. The doctor and one of the workers ran to the man, and Tomas walked to his sister. His sister, Happy, hugged him. Alex, the policeman, walked over and handcuffed the big man. I walked to the stage wanting to tell everyone who the real snakehead was. I wanted to expose him to everyone in the city, to show how dirty he was. But he smiled, walked over to me, looked at the crowd and said, "Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for finding him." Tomas looked at him and said, "No, you're involved." But Snakehead said, "No, Sarah. Tell everyone who hired you to find Tomas. I hired you. I didn't know about this. I didn't know my assistant locked you in that room. I'm very happy to find you, my friend." Tomas and I were both shocked. Tomas took his sister and walked out of the factory. Snakehead looked at me angrily, then looked at the crowd. He said, "Unfortunately, we cannot finish our event tonight, but we will soon." He looked at me with anger, then turned to Alex and said, "Take this man to jail. I'll deal with him later. Also, I want the best doctor in town to help Martin, my oldest employee." Everyone started clapping for him, talking about how good he was and how he cared about his people. The doctor treated Martin and I watched him. He was better. Luckily, the bullet only hit his leg. The doctor took him to the hospital and Snakehead started drinking. I walked out of the factory. Snow was everywhere and I was still in shock, thinking about everything that had really happened.